And I'm live. Hi, I'm Ted Kofi, and here is another tape I'm making about black opinion formers and black social commentators and how they address the issues of our times. The tradition of black people having opinions and forming opinions on anything isn't at all well established, certainly not in the West. Even in Africa, where they own their own continent, putatively, people expect to have their minds made up by reference to foreign media. That would be CNN, BBC, Washington Post, the Manchester Guardian, the London Times, and Al Jazeera, all the other international media, never an African medium. And this has meant that often when black social commentators come to speak, they don't speak to influence their own constituency. They speak to seek the respect of the very agencies who are often the architects of the difficult situations in which they find themselves. That's not to say that Africans don't carry responsibility for their circumstances. They carry a huge burden of responsibility, and no one can run away from that. But here it is. The tradition for African opinion formers and social commentators is to speak kind of in whispers, is to speak euphemistically of what their difficulties are, is to speak in a tongue-in-cheek way. And this I see consistently from men and women for whom I have enormous respect, because I know the intellect they possess, the knowledge they possess, the life experiences that they've been through. What their output is doesn't reflect what I know is in their lives. Now, so there is a tendency, if we're talking about sport, we're talking about music, we're talking about anything that doesn't threaten the status quo at the moment, we can be as vociferous as we like. So we can talk about trivia. But we live in times when everything that's going on around us is critical. The world is literally at a crossroads. We are all being encouraged, for example, to take a biological agent which is still in its test process with an emergency use authorization. And what's happening? How's this thing being covered? Celebrities, political figures are rocking up in our social media feeds with needles being stuck into them. This is an important decision. Fact number one, this coronavirus thing is a threat to the welfare of the entire human race. This coronavirus is not make-believe. Two of my personal dearest friends have died as a result of this pandemic. So this isn't something anybody is making up. For the very same reason, when we are talking about how to address it, it requires that we apply our wits to the best of our abilities. Now, it's not for me to sit here and pontificate about what you should do or what the other person should do. This is something for you to decide for yourself. I know what I'm going to be doing. And by the way, for the purposes of the platforms on which this plays, I am not an anti-vaxxer. I started traveling internationally from the age of 3.5, 4 years old. And since that time, I have had needles stuck into me. So I have grown up with the idea of vaccination. I am not by any way, shape or form an anti-vaxxer. Let me put that out there. The point is, though, that I don't think it serves the public to have people running around a little bit like groupies, following what the general zeitgeist is. For example, most of the people I know, when they see politicians kissing, hugging, tweaking the cheeks of cute little babies, usually on the campaign trail, most people roll their eyes and think, well, he would, wouldn't he? He's a politician. The same person shows up at a photo call to have a vaccine or a needle stuck into him, and all of a sudden people are applauding him for showing leadership and showing an example. Is there a disconnect there at all? Again, let me be clear. This is not to say that I am an anti-vaccinator. Not at all. What I am saying is that in the discourse we have with each other about something so important, that people show the same level of thought and perception that they normally show when other highly important political communications are going out there. Now, finishing off with that point I made earlier on about a lack of black social commentators or African-based social commentators. Black people have a different point of view about almost everything. If you're resident in the West, most of the adverse impacts that happen to society happen to black people first. What this generally results in is that black people are as arrogant as anybody else. Black people can be as selfish as anybody else. Black people can be as ambitious as anybody else. But black people aren't entitled. And that lack of entitlement is created and defined by a lived experience which has shown us that whenever you feel entitled to something, society will tend to take the view that you don't belong at the front of the queue. I'm not making that up. That's just the lived experience of, I would say, 40 years of adult life. So because of that lack of entitlement, black people tend to be cautious about everything that they do and think twice before they make the move. This is because, again, their lived experience is, if they trip up and fall down, the safety nets that are offered to them aren't as big, as wide, or as strong as the safety nets that are offered to non-Africans. This happens not just in Europe, it happens in Africa too. And so, when under the COVAX scheme, 600,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine rock up on the shores of Ghana, manufactured in India under license in Pune from AstraZeneca, people are talking about having access to this vaccine and utilizing this vaccine. I think that the social commentators out there need to get up and very responsibly use their voices. Because there's worse to come. There are far more important decisions yet to be made. And this is the time, whoever you are and wherever you are, if you're a black social commentator of any age, if you're a black opinion former of any age, this is the time to speak up and speak up responsibly. One thing that's difficult for black folk is that nobody tells you what they really think about you. It's often coded, it's often muted, and so on and so forth. So I'm trying to be as blunt and as straight as I possibly can be, while respecting everybody's right to their freedom of thought and freedom of choice. let's act responsibly with this. Let's not just join the rah-rah peanut gallery that just falls in line with what everybody else thinks. Let us actually engage our wisdom. Thanks very much. By the way, please subscribe to this. It's coming out on my YouTube channel. The more you subscribe, the more you will be able to see this sort of content. Have a great day and choose wisely.